Hi, this is Bob Roepke again. I'm with Mayor Mark Windschitl of Chaska, and Mark has certainly been involved in Chaska amateur baseball. I think he was the GM of the Cubs for how long?
10 years, and then a board member for 10 previous years. So,
okay,
so I got 20 years in.
Yeah, good. And you've been involved in state amateur tournaments too.
So I was a co-chair in 1998 and 2008. So yeah, that was when we were on the 10-year cycle.
Yeah. So let me just share, Mark, amateur baseball, what that means to a community. I mean, over the years that you've been involved, what do you see it provides to the community and for the community?
Well, to me, baseball is just that American pastime, and so when I started back in David, my son, was a junior in high school, so that had been 91-ish. I got on the board, they needed help, and at that time we were maybe lucky if we were getting 100 people.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get anybody, it's just hard, I kept thinking they were busy back then. It's nothing like today's world about being busy, but right. Our goal was always about getting fans here. We always said, if there's nobody in that stand, there's nobody going to be cheering, and there's nobody going to be buying concessions. So we did a lot of things. They always had the dugout pass, but it was a little different, and what happened back then is when the people ran out of punches, they disappeared.
Yeah.
And so we tried to keep that alive. Some talked about raising prices, and we said, let's just try it again. And we started doing it, but then what we did is in 91, 92, we got such a core base of the high school team. Almost the high school team shifted here.
Yeah.
So we had all the local kids. So now we get moms and dads and grandpas and grandmas, and we started getting that fan base.
Right.
And then people started hearing it, and then you start hearing the roars just across the community, and it just started filling in. And people would run out of punches, but they'd always come back. And like I said, in my later years, if somebody with a business sense looked at our business plan, they'd laugh at you and said, you can't survive doing that, but we did. And I have been contacted by many teams when I was a GM about, how did you do that? What do you do that you get a fan base like this? Because they'd come to our game and they'd have almost a better atmosphere than sometimes these state tournament games.
Yeah.
And that frustrated other communities. And like I said, it was not like rocket science. It was just, I think it's very important that you have that community base of kids.
Right.
Because that brings mom, dads, and then their neighbors and all that stuff. And that's so important.
Right, yeah, it really is. So, and when you chaired state tournament efforts, what was that whole experience like?
So this is the interesting. So I got in late in the 98 tournament. I was on the board, but we didn't meet anywhere near what they're doing now.
Right.
And Ted Nicolai, he'd already have the minutes wrote up before we had the meeting, who did what and everything.
Right.
So I remember when I got on, I thought, okay, this is interesting, and I'm learning, and I'm following the chair and doing this and that, and I kept saying, who's doing concessions? It's covered. We got it covered. Don't worry about it. I said, well, I am a little worried about it, but if you say it's covered, okay, because I learned definitely about concessions as I moved on in the years. 1998, I didn't know a lot about it.
Yeah.
And so opening night, game time, 2 people showed up for concessions. That was it. And they were both elderly. Marge Hansen and Bernie Thomas.
Wow.
And those 2 ladies, and I can't call them young because they were up there in age, but they worked their tail off because we didn't have much. So I really spent my next 3 weeks doing nothing but calling, recruiting, begging, borrowing, and getting people in here to help.
That's the biggest challenge of all, isn't it?
Yeah, that is without a doubt challenge. But it's all about having that fun atmosphere that people go, I had a good time, I want to come back. And that's really, I think that what we kept doing all along and all through my years here is trying to keep that fun atmosphere so that people are willing to come back. And then beside in 1998, so when that high school team started playing in 91, 92, it was comical. I mean, I thought they were a good baseball team back then, and I thought they'd be able to come into this league and be just fine. oh, it was comical. I mean, they couldn't field, they couldn't do anything. So it was a challenging. But was that the '98 that they made it, or was that the '08? No, I don't remember. It was '98. '98, we made it to the state tournament, and we ran all the way and played 2 championship games.
Yeah, that was against Dundas, I think.
Yes,
yeah.
And that was the year. So not only were we running that tournament, all of our games were in Hamburg.
Oh, a different
so
place.
So we had to run all.
So
and then what was really great is we had Jordan, Shakopee, the neighboring communities. They would come over and help with the grounds crew, because most of our grounds crew was the baseball team.
Oh, yeah.
And so they came over to that. We had some of their folks, the Brimehorst and his family, come over and helped with concessions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's that baseball community when these tournaments happen. You see it. There's Shakopee, Jordan, Chanhassen, all kinds of guys coming here to help with work on the field. And, part of it is they know they get in and get to get into the game free and see it. But you know what? That's still part of it. That's a perk of it.
They have that common denominator of baseball.
Yeah.
Town team base, and they all working together.
And
that's the spirit.
And they're working, but they're having fun, and that's that atmosphere that I think is so important. That you gotta, especially as an all volunteer base, like the Cubs are and have been.
Right.
So, but yeah, and then 2008 just seemed to run a little smoother. We had a good base and stuff, but they're just a lot of work. They are wearing. I mean, it's you're doing things through the year, but 5 weeks leading up to the tournament and then the 3 weekends is just craziness.
So for us this year, I mean, we've farmed out the concessions to youth baseball. So our focus becomes kind of the advertising, sponsorship, selling before the tournament, and then the beer garden, and selling that. And so it can
but that's so much more manageable, yes.
Oh, it's
doable. And it's, I mean, I think it's great. I know we had recruited youth baseball, and we had soccer and volleyball when we would do like these tournaments. We'd have them come in, we'd pay them just because they were a weekday. It was hard to get our volunteer staff, but kids were out of school. So we started that, but not at this level. And this is great, and I, seeing amount of people that are here, I would think that they're doing well. It's not terribly hot, so people eat more and they drink more. If there's not,
the beer garden's doing well. Right.
Yeah, I meant the other pop.
Right. Oh, beverages.
People drink soda more often.
Well, they're both doing well.
Yeah.
Right. And that can be a feeder system. Youth baseball into the Cubs organization.
Well, and we kind of lost that lead. We had Dale at the schools, and we had Eric at the schools. That's Welters now, what I'm referring to is, and they both have, they're not there anymore, so we don't have that in to get those guys there. And the Cubs were always looked at as that's pretty high level, and you got to really get asked to come into the organization, and you have that. We've had always such a big core base that we didn't always need players, and then they start leaving, and now they go with their buddies, and that's the problem. Now they're in the Chans and Victorias and Carvers, and you notice their levels have all increased. But and we've stayed. We just never seem to get that next step. So.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing when you think back to 1955, or 1950, when this place was built, and then in 55 when the Chaska hosted its first state tournament in the new ballpark here, 25,000 people
I know.
in one site. I mean, can you imagine that?
But think about that. When I came down here, Renaissance traffic was backed up to Chaska. So there's no Renaissance. There's no State Fair. State Fair was probably going on, but you couldn't get there. But no professional sports. So this was sports, and that's why amateur baseball, people are still amazed how strong amateur baseball is in Minnesota, because it's, you can almost put it as a AAA organizations for some that there's a lot of these kids have come out of AAA ball and
it's a flagship across the country. There's no state amateur program like Minnesota.
Nope, not at all.
It's really
so it's always fun to be part of it, because, like I said, it's fun because there's a lot of people here and they're cheering and supporting their teams, and like I said, that's what baseball's about. It's not playing in front of the empty stadiums and nobody you know, then it's just kind of like, oh well.
And these small towns follow their
Oh
towns, their
boy,
teams,
I remember some of these teams coming in with bus loads,
Yeah.
and they are hooping and hollering.
Yeah, have a good time.
Beckman, I remember we got them, and man, they came in with like 3 bus loads, and like we just never expected that,
Yeah.
you know. And man, did they have a good time?
Oh,
They love it.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is that most people leave here, you know, providing you didn't have a tough loss, but leave here with a great experience.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing that
That's what you want.
this is one of the, I again, as the mayor, and being part of this organization so long, I will tell you that this is the best park, amateur park in Minnesota. And I know that there'll be tons of people that argue with me, but there's nothing missing here. Our biggest downfall is we get flooded, and that kind of doesn't allow us to do some things that would really make this park the ultimate of ultimates, you know. So,
But it's still a wonderful place.
and the thing, you know, and it kind of goes back to our organizations, the work that gets done here. I mean, when I started, all the fences were inside the tree line.
Yeah.
So they were all inside of here. We moved, we put in all new fences, we backed them up, we brought the trees back
More
into
green
the
space.
park.
Yep.
We put in the green windscreen and worked with the Legion the first time around, got the new scoreboard. The press box used to be on the roof of the here, and
Right.
the city always cringed when there'd be 30, 40 people up there.
Right.
And I remember, boy, that was a hard one, and I said we're moving it down, and I got a lot of grief for it. And now we've got probably one of the premier press boxes now, in where it's located. And it didn't hurt nothing.
No.
We lost some seating, but
We can't say enough about the relationship with the city and the support of the city. I mean, your organization, your staff, Public Works, is just Brian Jung and Selmer Olson and Mike O'Connor.
Michael, yeah.
All those people have just been so committed, so dedicated, and it takes such pride in the result here.
And they always know when these tournaments come up that they start putting a week,
Yep.
10 days aside that they got to do the improvements here,
Oh, boy.
and you know, we get the place
A massive
painted
effort.
and cleaned up, and
Can't say thanks enough.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
hopefully in 10 years it doesn't get all filled up with junk again.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, thanks, Mayor, for
Yep,
being part of this.
absolutely.
And,
Thank
thanks
you.
for all your support.
Perfect.
Appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.